Hey there, my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thanks so much for clicking on my video. I'm Emily Summer. I'm a wedding planner based in Montana, and I also own Velvet Bride, which is a wedding dress store here in Missoula, Montana. And I make weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice. So today we're going to talk about 5 red flags when it comes to venue hunting and going on venue tours. One is bad reviews. So this goes for any wedding vendor. You should definitely be checking the reviews for your wedding vendors when you are in the booking process and research process. And that being said, I don't mean if there's one bad review you should run, it's going to be a negative experience. There's pretty much always going to be one bad review for any business, any industry. That's just kind of the way that it is. So really scour through the reviews, read what people are saying about the venue. If there are several consistencies across different reviews, in a negative aspect, if you're seeing a lot of people comment about the same thing, maybe poor communication or something about the venue space itself, maybe it wasn't clean or something like that, where there's multiple people commenting about the same sort of thing about the venue, that's definitely going to be a red flag. Number 2 is poor communications. If you're having a difficult time reaching the venue, getting in contact with an actual person, if you're waiting weeks to get a response on questions that you ask in the beginning process of even discussing setting up a venue tour or anything with this venue, you probably want to look elsewhere, as this is an indication of what the communication and planning process is going to look like for the rest of the wedding planning process for you. And what this indicates is that you aren't a priority to them. Maybe they're juggling a ton of weddings and, not responding to an email or a phone call for a couple of days is probably pretty normal, especially during peak season. However, like I said, if you're waiting weeks or more, you want to make sure this venue sees you as a priority, as you are likely going to be spending a large chunk of your budget on this aspect of your wedding. Number 3 is COVID protocols. So if the last couple of years have taught us anything, it's that you want to make sure that you are being covered and protected. So when you are looking through venue contracts, make sure that there is a clause or some kind of force majeure clause for cancellations and rescheduling based on completely uncontrollable circumstances, such as a global pandemic. You want to make sure that this is addressed in the contract, that you've discussed it, so that if, God forbid, something were to happen again, you know that you're covered, you know that what your options are, so that you don't end up at a financial loss in addition to, your wedding plans completely changing. Number 4 is limited setup time. So if you are renting your venue for just a day rather than the entire weekend, you're going to have access to it, ideally the morning of your wedding, and then you have probably an hour or so at the end of the night before you have to be completely out, that you can be unpacking things, getting things out of the venue if you have to be out at the end of that night. So if you only have the venue for the day, you want to make sure that they are allowing you enough time to go in and set up prior to when your wedding starts or prior to when your guests arrive. If they only give you about a couple hours before your wedding starts, you're going to want to run, because even if you think that you don't have that much to set up, if you're keeping it pretty simple, it always takes longer than you think, and you want to make sure that you are having ample time to set things up. Maybe something gets forgotten and you have to have somebody go run an errand and come back. You just want to make sure that you're giving yourself plenty of time for setup. I typically arrive to a wedding about 5 hours at least before the actual ceremony starts, to make sure that I have everything that I need, everything is set up and ready to go, and that it's set up and ready to go more than 10 minutes before the guests arrive, that there's plenty of time to fine tune, plenty of time to walk around, see if anything else needs to be addressed, and be able to actually touch base with all the vendors there, check on my couple, and all that good stuff. So make sure that you are being given ample time for setup when it comes to the day of your wedding if you're doing just a single day rental. And number 5 is not having a backup plan. If you're touring a venue and it is solely outdoors and there is no indoor reception space, make sure that you are talking to the venue about what a backup plan might look like if say the weather were to turn nasty. If they kind of come up short and don't really have any options for you or don't have any ideas, you probably want to walk away and find somewhere that is going to give you a good solid backup plan. If their mentality is sort of, well, you're on your own if that happens, that's one more added stress that you have to think about, because obviously we don't have control of the weather. Anything could happen on the day of your wedding, and you want to make sure that you're working with a venue that is going to have your best interest in mind and be helping you brainstorm a backup plan from the start of this wedding planning process. So if that's renting a tent, having them give you options, suggestions on size and what other couples have done to have some sort of rain, weather backup plan, so that you feel, again, like you're protected and cared for from this venue. So those are just a few red flags that will help you probably quickly eliminate venues in the beginning stages of venue hunting. If you're looking for some more tips on finding that perfect venue for you, I have a couple other videos that I will link above on questions to ask your venue and things to look for when you are venue hunting. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next week.